I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. Board members may attend and participate in board meetings by electronic means in accordance with BVSD policy BME and state law. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Chavez,
Here.
Medler,
Here.
Niznik, Quinlan Aweda,
Here.
Rajpal,
Here.
Sargent, Unger.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd now like to turn it over to Jorge Chavez, who will be reading her land acknowledgement this morning.
Buenos días. Reconocimiento de la tierra. El Distrito Escolar del Valle de Boulder reside y opera en tierras que son tierras ancestrales natales e injusta e ilegalmente arrebatadas del territorio de los pueblos Ute, Puebloan, Arapaho, Cheyenne, Apache, Navajo y otras 48 naciones tribales históricamente asociadas a estas tierras, y que han llamado a estas tierras como su hogar desde tiempos inmemoriales. Reconocemos las atrocidades realizadas aquí, incluyendo la dolorosa historia de genocidio, la asimilación forzada y los esfuerzos para alienar a los habitantes indígenas de sus tierras, con el apoyo de las políticas del gobierno de los Estados Unidos. El BVSD es consciente de los muchos pueblos indígenas en el pasado y en el presente, y sus naciones y culturas dignas que cuidan la tierra con fuerza y resistencia. El BVSD reconoce las historias de la tierra en Colorado y la supervivencia de las muchas naciones que han llevado sus tradiciones orales hasta el presente. Es la responsabilidad del BVSD de educarnos, a nuestras comunidades y a nuestros estudiantes, para que podamos celebrar y respetar la sabiduría y el conocimiento de los pueblos indígenas, y unimos activamente para abordar las injusticias. Al ofrecer este reconocimiento de la tierra, afirmamos y honramos la historia, la sabiduría y las tradiciones orales y resiliencia de los pueblos indígenas, y reconocemos la responsabilidad de cuidar y apreciar esta tierra juntos. Gracias.
Thank you, Jorge. I'd like to remind everybody that the mission of the Boulder Valley School District is to create challenging, meaningful, and engaging learning opportunities that alter and thrive and are prepared for successful, civically engaged lives. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We are glad to have you here to observe and participate in our meetings. At this time, I'd like to see if there's a motion to approve our agenda for today. Moved by Beth, seconded by Jason. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Chavez,
Yes.
Medler,
Yes.
Niznik,
Yes.
Quinlan Aweda,
Yes.
Rajpal,
Yes.
Unger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
The first item on our agenda this morning is public participation, specifically addressing the Grove Elementary School charter application. The board respects the right of the public to speak on matters concerning the operations of the schools. The board does not endorse the comments of any speaker and reminds all those who speak that you are responsible for your own speech. Speakers will each have 2 minutes to speak. They will see a yellow card when they have 30 seconds remaining and an orange card when they have 10 seconds remaining. If you run out of time or would like to share additional information, you may always email the board. Board members, this morning we have one individual providing public comment. That person is Ben Vager.
Is it on? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Boulder Valley School Board. I'm here to speak in favor of the Grove Elementary being a charter school application. And I'd like to introduce myself as Ben Vager. I have lived in Broomfield since 1975, moved there, and have been there ever since, raised a family there, and now I have grandkids. All these kids have gone to Bell Swan Elementary School, so I'm quite familiar with the school. And I've been active with the school since 2019, I think it was. I went on the school board. So when I went on the school board, I identified right away that we had a school that had some real strong issues as far as the building was concerned. We had a lot of work to do on the building. It was built back in the 60s, and it had some strong issues that was going to cost us a lot of time, energy, and money. And so I promoted, let's look at building a new school. Let's go ahead and tear down what we have and build a new school for the future. That started the ball rolling. And we started moving that direction. And then as we moved that direction, we started talking about how important it would be to have a grade school. So we started introducing the idea of a grade school for all the way up to the 5th grade. As you know, some of these parents go through a lot of, it's very difficult to move from Belle Swan to the next school. So anyway, I am on the building committee right now, and I'm also on the capital campaign, and we're looking forward to building this building for both schools. And I want you, like to have your support so we could go ahead and get this grade school going and basically make it a charter school. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for this morning. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts on Grove Elementary. We have one information item to discuss, board members, this morning. It is BVSD's policy framework. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Anderson for introductions.
Thank you, Board President Raj Paul. Good morning, board members. Excited to be here with you this morning to discuss our revised and upgraded and updated policy framework. With me this morning, of course, Kathleen Sullivan, District Attorney, and Chris Brecht, our Director of Strategic Initiatives. Chris, if you can go to the next slide. Board members, this is a topic that we discussed as we were setting our goals, my goals back in the fall, to create a more systemic and reliable framework in reviewing policies. And so we've been hard at work figuring out what that would look like. Excited to present to you today the plan that we've created. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Kathleen and Chris.
Good morning, board members. So I'm happy to be here with Chris, our project manager, project extraordinaire, strategic guy, who's going to make sure this all happens. It doesn't fit on a business card, but you get the idea. So we really have a couple of ways that policies come before the board. First, we have the prioritization process, which you've now been through twice, three times, twice. Okay. Where the board identifies those policies that you wish to review or discuss. That happens at the end of every meeting where board members identify policies and then you prioritize them in your twice a year sessions. The other stream of policy that we need to keep flowing in order to meet Dr. Anderson's goal and this board's goal of getting through all the policies every 7 years is our maintenance strand. So either district leadership can come forward, as Rob Price has recently, around closings and weather cancellations, because there's an update that we need to make that's timely just to make sure it matches our operations, or then making sure that we're getting items that might not be identified by the board or staff, but are important to review so that we don't have anything left in our manual that says reviewed at the time of manual adoption or prior to 1969. The board has 3 possible actions when these policies come forward. One would be just repeal or retirement of something that is no longer necessary at the board level. That could include a policy. It could include your policy regulation or exhibits. When we talk about policies for purposes of this review cycle, since we would have to address each of those in order to retire, review, or move them forward, I'm using that term policy to reference the policy, the regulation, or the exhibit. So there could be repeal, retirement. We could be revising it to match updates in the law or practice or the board's direction, or it could be initial adoption, as you've done recently with neurodiversity. Anytime we're going to be revising or adopting, we are typically going through that longer process of making sure that we have internal staff recommendations, that we're soliciting community input, that we're really looking to see what our current practice is and align that with any of the statutory requirements.
Good morning, board members. Thank you again for having me. Excited to take on this work. This is a visual that we prepared to help demonstrate the project workflow that Kathleen mentioned. So what you see on the right is not new. That is the current policy work that the board takes on. But what you see on the left is new. That is going to be the concurrent workflow that we will follow to meet the maintenance schedule of a 7-year plan. So what you see up here is that as Kathleen mentioned, we're going to go through each of those policies. We're going to identify where we can find some efficiencies, looking at what policies are outdated, referencing the current CASB sample policies to identify where we can eliminate some redundancies wherever possible, so that we can create some efficiencies within our current policy framework, which is some 380 policies currently. Obviously, it'll go down through the same process, getting all the way into board study where you will be able to take the board action that Kathleen just referenced. If there's any feedback that needs to happen, just as we currently do within the current process, from the board, we'll come back, we'll make those revisions, come back to you again. So the idea here is that if we feel like we can accomplish this with limited edits, if it needs to be updated language, that we can move through those maintenance policies at a fairly aggressive pace. Obviously, this does not impact anything that you would like to prioritize or revise. So we would want to just be able to have 2 concurrent workflows that you guys can easily see.
So one of the things that we talked about for quite a while and that we have been able to implement is a more effective way to make the public aware of what policies are going to be updated and to have an opportunity to provide input both on the prioritized policies as well as just the general policy feedback. So this is our general form board policy feedback. If the community, or really primarily intended for community, has feedback on any policy, this is a place that they can go, make us aware of their public comments. One of the nice things about this process is that this uses a smart sheet, which is a way for this input to come in, to be put on an Excel spreadsheet with the person, their feedback, when we received it. And it makes it really easy for those more complex policy issues where the board really wants to see all of the public comment and how we've responded to it. It really facilitates that process to be much more efficient.
All right, and so the policy maintenance calendar, there's a hard copy in front of each of you board members, so you could take a glance at that. A couple of things I want to bring to your attention as a part of this process. Number one, the policy review calendar. The policies are going to be coded by the policy group itself. This is just a high-level timeline to be able to keep us on track. You'll notice that some of the policy categories that have been more recently updated will be scheduled for later on within that policy calendar. It does meet a 7-year timeline. And then the other thing that I want to point out is that the larger policy groups will span multiple quarters, as we have upwards of 80 plus within specific, or 80 plus policies within specific policy groups. So we do feel like there's going to be opportunities for us to accelerate in here. We built in some flexibility for that. But right now, what you'll see in front of you is a 7-year timeline for that. The last thing is that just as an FYI, this is a calendar. It's a draft calendar for us to be able to put policies in front of you, board. It does not assume that any of those policies are going to be taking action at that time. We will obviously be waiting for your direction on that. So these are goals that we will set to ensure that we can get the policies in front of you within a timely manner and meet those scheduled deadlines as a part of that superintendent goal.
Alex, and then I have a question.
Yeah, I've only been at this a year. I guess one of the things we often do is talk about them in terms of their letters. And if like a table like this is for anybody outside our team, it would be great to do D : whatever D is. And can you walk us through D, A through J?
Yes, I can. No, I'm teasing. That point well taken. I don't think everybody else speaks in the same shorthand letter format, so we're happy to do that. First up for F will be facilities. These are really that we haven't touched anything, I think, in the F policies in a long time. So that's facilities. And then next up would be business services. That's the D chapter. And E are our personnel policies that relate to our classified staff.
And then Chris, question here. Sometimes we have policies that co-relate and commingle with policies outside of that chapter. Is your intent to bring like policies together in chunks, both to maximize board efficiency and to efficiently work through those policies, even if the chapters are not the same?
Yes, it is. That is 100%. This is a guidepost for us in order to make sure that we're putting policies in front of appropriate staff to get input in a timely manner, but we will absolutely look at all of the reference policies and try to identify any overlap within the current policy framework and bring those together, similar to what we would do with prioritization of policies currently. So that will happen, yes.
Great, thank you. Beth?
Thanks for this presentation. I have more of a comment than a question. I felt like maybe it was more appropriate to throw it in there now. I'm excited about the policy feedback form for our public because I feel like one of the most critical roles we play here is in kind of condition setting, right? And a lot of that work is set through policy. So I'm excited that we're going to get more feedback from our constituents around that. So thanks for doing that. That's new, correct? We've never had this before.
That's new. We
Love it.
introduced it as part of the neurodiversity work. We'd certainly been trying for it, but we actually got it accomplished. We're now making sure that it works effectively in Spanish. It's been up just a couple of weeks, but I think that it should, as we're transitioning our website a little bit, it should present in exactly the same way.
Thank you. I really think that makes our role and our job so much easier. So appreciate that.
Jason?
Sorry if I missed this, but just on the feedback, how do we see the feedback? Is that like as it comes in or as we cover those policies?
Typically, the way I would present the feedback is we would attach the comments as part of the board item when you're studying so that you can get a sense as to what that feedback is.
Jorge?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Zola, and I really do like that feedback form website. I'm curious kind of how it's advertised, how the public knows about it, what the timeline looks like, and do you get like a large run-up, say these are coming in next year, or what's new? I know it's new, but kind of what's your thinking around that? Thank you.
So I think that it really needs to be a few months ahead of the board always, is my first take on that. So we really focused on getting neurodiversity up because we knew we had public input we wanted to capture. But my vision is that we would have sort of a 3 almost on base, on deck, and what's coming next so that people can anticipate when they would want to engage. What was the rest of your question, Jorge? I'm so sorry. Oh, how it's advertised. Thank you. So now that we've been able to share this presentation with the board, we will work with Randy Barber and our amazing communications team to identify a way to roll it out and make sure it gets the public attention that we need.
Just to add on that, I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but the form actually does have a it is currently live on the policy framework, and the banner is currently on the entire policy page. So it's not just a hidden link. It's actually front and center on the policy page, but that would be obviously in addition to a full communication rollout.
I know Christy said, you kind of talked about how many policies we have currently. You have a results populated that will show like how many we're going through, but just roughly for the board, this is penciling out to be about 20 policies a quarter. And so as we think about workflow, I think we need to keep in other things that we're taking on that are not just additional things that we take on, to be mindful of that. And policy is a really big part of our responsibility. It's one of the things we're required to do. And some of these policies are exceptionally old, and ideally, because you use those words that I really like about making sure we're being really concise and we're not having duplicates, and we can whittle away, some of these policies and resolutions potentially, and then the next board will have a much easier go. of working with these as we create efficiencies within the process and within the policies themselves. But I just wanted to let you know that that's really what that's looking like. Some of these chapters have a lot of very short policies, so it's hard to say exactly how much that will count, that'll mean in minutes of our time, but that's about the number of policies per quarter we're anticipating. So I just want to make everybody aware of that.
I appreciate you putting that in context within all the other important things that need to happen in this room. Appreciate that.
Jorge.
And just to be clear, that's per quarter, not per semester. So
Yes. so
I
that'd
just
be-
want to make sure I had the right math in my head.
Yeah, I'll note that we will have quarters that have fewer policies that are reviewed. We do have opportunities within bigger policy coded areas where we feel like we can have larger groups combined in together. So if we don't make 20 in a quarter, there's likely we're going to make 20 more in an additional quarter. There's definitely opportunities for us to gain traction on that. So.
Alex.
Given how long in the tooth some of these are and the likelihood that we're going to hopefully, take some from policies and turn them into, lesser levels or some that we'll just get rid of. Since we have 4 years of planning, I'm wondering if we might have an additional project that you could contract out, let's say that doesn't become part of your day work, to have somebody go through all 800 of them or whatever and generate the list of obsolete, so that someone might come back to us at some point and say, here are 120 we're going to take off in one fell swoop that are all obsolete. So that it doesn't become just a regular thing where you have to spend the time, and we could maybe just take a hunk of it off if there's that many that have never been reviewed. It's one idea of sort of managing the workflow again to keep us focused on the substance.
Dr. Anderson.
First of all, I want to thank Chris and Kathleen for organizing this, putting this in a place where it's manageable and gives us a path forward. Appreciate their leadership on that. One of the strengths I think of our board work is the way that we prioritize our work, right? And so to Alex's point, to the extent that if there is other priorities where we might want to expand during a certain semester and do less policy, we could potentially do some of those things outsourcing. I would like to move forward with this plan as it stands today to see how it works and to see, to understand how much board work it's going to take to be able to do this. We don't know that. I mean, this is an ambitious schedule. Hopefully, to Nicole's point, that you don't have 400 policies to review after you're done with this. Maybe it's 300 or 200, and that a 5-year cycle is something that's reasonable. So I do think that is an option. I do think that that's something we could certainly consider. At this point, I would recommend that we go forward with this process and know and understand that if we feel like it's getting caught up, or if for whatever reason it's interfering with other work as a board that we feel like is important, that there are options to accelerate or outsource or off ramp or slow down if we need to do that. So.
Board members, any other questions or comments? This was your last slide. I know we started asking questions before. I was sure you were totally done with what you had to say there, but yeah. Just don't want to cut anybody off this cold early morning. I'm excited. Policy, you all know, is something that I really appreciate getting through. And I like the fact that it's not just Kathleen's responsibility to deal with this. I really appreciate the fact, I think to Alex's point about us being efficient and using everybody's time wisely, like having this not just fall on Kathleen will help. And hopefully that works well. So thanks to all the staff for, being involved in this early process and deciding the order of things. A lot of the early stuff will be things I think that the board and our community are less excited about: facilities, business services. I know Bill really likes to talk about that stuff, but the policies themselves are a little less exciting. So I think a lot of the policy work we have been engaged in as a board has really been directly impacting our students in really significant ways. And so our engagement with the policies, the community engagement policies has been heavier. I think for some of these, it might be a little bit of a softer touch, and we'll just see how that goes. So thank you for that presentation. Thank you for getting this all teed up. And I look forward to, it's said January through March, so the first 20 policies on our plate. Thank you, guys. Board members, that concludes the information item for this morning. Our next item is executive session. As indicated on the agenda today, our final order of business of the school board is to discuss issues in executive session. May I have a motion? Jason.
I, Jason Unger, make a motion pursuant to CRS 24-6-402-4B to convene its executive session to receive specific legal advice on the charter school application and renewal process.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Beth. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Chavez,
Yes.
Medler,
Yes.
Niznik,
Yes.
Quinlan Oeda,
Yes.
Raj Paul,
Yes.
Unger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Board members, we will convene in the Glacier Room. Welcome back to the boardroom, board members. As executive session has ended, that is the rest of our business for today, so we are adjourned.